Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Book to Block, the series where I bring my fantasy novel to life in Minecraft, one block at a time. In today's episode, we're continuing on with our volcano city, and today we're going to be working on some shops. Let's get into it. Alright, so I've done a little bit of the planning as you just saw. I just kind of built up a little bit of a structure just to plan out the feel I kind of want for this section of the city. So I kind of want it to feel like a little bit of a maze, very tight, kind of closed in. So these are going to go a couple more blocks higher, but I've just kind of started setting up some shops. So right now they're just empty boxes. I don't know if I'll finish the interiors for this episode or if I'm just going to focus on the exteriors and get just the feel of this whole kind of back alleyway shopping area complete. So my kind of plan was originally to have just one long path with buildings on either side, as you may have remembered from other episodes when I had the orange outlines, but I wanted it to feel a bit more like a maze, because in the novel that I'm writing, it kind of feels like that when I'm describing it. Even though I don't have a concrete image of what I want in mind, this will help kind of reinforce what I'm really feeling for what I want the build to look like. So I felt really kind of drawn to the drawn in, overarching, maybe have some bridges across from shop to shop, probably have the shopkeepers living in the attics of their stores. But in the book, the main character, well, I've told the story of how he comes down, goes to the village, and then comes here. He then joins the city, walks around, experiences the sights, stays in an inn. I think I'm going to make this the inn just because it's one of the larger builds and it's kind of a central location. So he spends the night at the inn, then he goes exploring again and comes to the shopping district where he wanders around trying to get information, just random information that might help him on his journey. So then he kind of comes into the back alley, and I think I'm going to set it to this one. Why can I not place these? Oh, replace mode. There we go. So I'm thinking I'm going to set this as the main store that I wanted him to go to, and it is a bookstore. So he comes in, talks to a mysterious bookkeep, and he gives him some information, which sends him to the secret shrine. So this is where he gets the information from. But then when he comes back from that journey, he goes to check in, it's like tell him, oh, the shrine, the things that happened, let him know. By the time he gets back, it's just a brick wall. So it's kind of like a magical seal. This guy, he's like on the run from the authorities or something. So he has the ability to kind of mask his shop. So I'm going to have to work out a way of kind of designing that into the kind of wall here. I might expand back a little bit because these interiors, the size doesn't really matter. I can make them so much more smaller, and that would actually help because I want them to feel like they're kind of crowded, having like bookshelves falling over each other and things like that. But for now, I want to kind of design the style. So I'm obviously going in here with my deep slate. I like that for this kind of whole district. I've got the deep slate here with the tiled ones, using the bricks over here for the housing. So it's kind of the style that it kind of slightly contrasts with the black stone of the volcano, but it's not going to be like standing out too much. Kind of like the mud. This was kind of just a design that I saw online. I saw one build that had the mud deep slate, and I was like, that's a great look. Let's do that. And then I created all these. But for this one, I think I'm going to go for deep slate at least. Then maybe play around with the tuff, or maybe go for a darker roof. So these ones have the same color. Let's fly over here a little quick to get a closer look. But these ones, they have the same color roof as the kind of body or the walls of the house. It's a little bit different because I played around with Axiom's auto shader, which gave me these kind of like dark spots where the sun doesn't hit it. I kind of made the imaginary sun where I'm standing or flying right now. So that was just me playing around with that. I might go back to just the clean look that I have for most other builds, but I might play around with that more later, but that's for another episode. And you might have also noticed I've kind of left this space empty. Basically, it'll just be more of this just expanded, but I left it empty so I could show you kind of how I plan to make these kind of builds. So what I usually do is I set up just a test build. I use the same blocks I plan on using, probably a much smaller scale, just to kind of get this style. So I did that for all of these guys, where I basically just had a square. So if you cut off this side, it was just to get like the shape, the design, any like accents, like I have the copper ring or like strip there. So just to get an idea. So what I do is I come in here, I know I want a door, so let's grab one of those. I don't worry too much about like the coloring or any of that. I just want to get the base design of it. So we can bring it up like this, maybe one more. So for these, this is kind of like the first story. So let's slow down my flight a little bit. So I'm thinking of having them overhang. So I'm probably gonna bring them out at least one. So for that, I'll need a little bit of a stair action because you don't want it to be too sharp of a kind of change like this. That's the nice thing about stairs. Maybe I'll try a bit of the shelf action to get a little bit more of a smooth curve because we look at the shelves. I mean, not too many of them fit with this kind of gray color. Maybe a bit of white. Or maybe we swap that out. So maybe having the dark oak kind of accent because I've already got the door of the dark oak. So maybe having that also works. So then after that, I'm going to plan a little bit more of this second floor. So I want to have maybe a bit of windows. So we're going to make sure when working on corners, you always have to make sure you're not messing anything up because this kind of works. You have two windows either side, but you want to make sure you have a block in between to kind of separate those. And another thing I do for these is I only build like from certain angles. Like for these back bits, like when they're kind of up against the mountain, I'm just going to have the roof kind of go into it, or I might bring the mountain out to kind of hide a bunch of the details so I don't have to worry about those kind of hidden extra bits. Alright, so I did a little bit more detailing. So I've added in these walls to the corners. They're not quite as sharp because once you get this, it feels very blocky, default Minecraft. So just adding these to the corners where you just replace with wall instead of block, it adds a bit of a curve that is hard to get in Minecraft. I also went up and added in a bit of a window. I'm not sure if I'm making it one tall or maybe two tall, but that can be kind of a different. Some are taller than others. You want a bit of variation. You don't want it all to look very similar. If you want it to like be a little bit more creative, if you want it to be a very dystopian, this is how it looks, no need for any change, everything must look the same, then that's a bit different. But if you want to get creative, adding a bit of height variation can just change things dramatically. Now, I have a kind of vision for what I want the roof to be, but I don't know what kind of blocks to use because I've kind of set that limitation on myself for this kind of area, this city. It's a lava volcano, so not much wood can be used. I'd love to use some more woods like I did in my village over here, but that's kind of hard to do. So what I want it to be kind of the color of the dark oak planks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the Axioms color picker. If you just drop that in, gives a bunch of different options. So things that I forgot, like terracotta. So that's a perfect example of what I can use. So let's toss those in. Maybe, yeah, so that's all that. So these two are going to be good for that. All these other ones are the woods, cartographer table, wood, 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 all wood. So these are going to be maybe my roof blocks. Problem with these, I don't have any stair variants. So if I go into stairs, this is also what I like to do. I like to look around for what kind of blocks I can use. So I'm either going to go and completely change my mind, disregard the kind of wood color I wanted, and just hop to the copper like I have for other builds. Maybe I'll copy the mud from my kind of warehouses, but just make it the roof instead. Let's go back to stairs here. What else can we use? And this is kind of my process. I just look for stairs usually when I'm looking for a roof color. I scroll through, find one I like. So bring back the tuff, just in case I want to play around with that. What else? Possibly nether bricks, probably not because it has that purpley red color. And it doesn't really fit with my building style. I'm going to avoid the black stones because that's the kind of ground and walls. Don't want too much overlap. We got the deep slate, which is my kind of build with like the walls and stuff. But I think that's good. So what I can do is I can just use one of them. Maybe I'll do it with the dark oak at first, and then I can just easily change all the blocks like from the dark oak to whatever one I want and just kind of see the different types. Alright, I got a bit more shape in here now, kind of the design for the roof. I always go for like kind of a skeletal structure, figure out where the top is going to be. I'm going to kind of mark that off with the walls. I'm going to remove this afterwards because I don't need this to be here, but maybe on the sides here. But I just try and get a shape. So most of the time what I do is I place the 2 blocks that I want to go. So I'll just move this for now. And then I go into smear, left and right click on the same block, scroll once, and then you can middle mouse click and then just scroll into place. And it gives a nice kind of line between the two, which is kind of how I did this one. And then after that, I add stairs on top. So it's usually like this. So I just toss on some stairs to smooth it out. I've also got this kind of front little window here. I might expand the window up a little bit. I brought it out a little bit for kind of a balcony. I can remove that and then toss in full block there. But this is just the next step. So next, what I want to do is either continue this across, or maybe get a different block. So for now, I'll just toss in some mud. So let's just toss those in. So either you keep it on the same level, or you can go in by one. This gives it a bit more depth, so I can kind of go here, and then let's just grab the mud for now. I can switch it out for a different block later, grab the slab as well. And there we go. So that's next, and yeah. So then you can use smear. So if you use smear on these, even if something's in the way, it'll just stop right away. So you see this one here. So, oh, don't want to do that. I want to keep it on the same level. So as you can see here, it moved here, but since there was block here, it stopped it. So now there's nothing going to be over here. If you use the stack tool instead, it will replace these blocks. But I don't want that, so I'm going to do that. And then I'll just manually place these in. And then I can replace these blocks back here. And that gives it a bit more detail. I might want to do something along the center. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring these back a little bit, connect it up a little, check the corners. So maybe don't want the deep slate there. So if I want to hide that, I can just use the stairs angle that hides it, gives it a bit more shape as well. And then maybe I want to kind of switch out some things. So maybe I want a line down the center here. So we can place, I want this, so it's there. So I'm just trying to, when you have these kind of two-tiered systems, it's hard to tell where it actually starts. So I want to go there, there, and then maybe we just do a slab here. And then we can switch that one out. And then I can replace these with the full blocks. Oop, missed that back there. Toss that there. And that's a good start. I could also maybe switch these out for the corner ones. Nice thing about having two sides is you can compare. So do I like this better or do I like this better? I'll probably just go back and forth. Maybe I'll do the same over here, just to get a good idea of how it looks all together. I think I prefer the smooth, so I'm going to go back to that. But I'm going to definitely keep this one here just to hide the deep slate that's behind it. But that's just kind of a nice quick little demo of my original building techniques of just how I start a build. So then if I come up here, I've got to kind of fill in this area. So usually I just try and get the edge of it first, maybe just fill it in completely. And then I can add the detail after. So make sure it's all, yep, so it's all the deep slate. So maybe I'll come in here and replace these. Depends on how thick I want it. For this side, I'll replace the blocks. And on this side, I'll just add new ones in. So you can kind of tell there's a difference. So this one's very skinny, whereas this is really thick. I think I prefer the skinny, so I'm going to go back and replace all of these. So remove these solid blocks, place in my stairs, and there you go. So that's the side. I got a bit of the mud on that side, so maybe I'll cover that up with something. So I could either go like something like this, or maybe I could use the shelving. This is kind of my process. I just play around until I get something that I like. So right now this isn't a complete build because obviously no back, it's not symmetrical. It's more just to get the style of the kind of roof. That's my main point. That's the part I struggle with the most when building, is getting the right roof, getting the right blocks for it. I'm actually kind of liking this mud and dark oak, but if we go back to our stairs that I was mentioning earlier, so mud was the other option, but now since that's used, I can't use that anymore. So maybe we go in with the copper. Let's see. And then we'll try nether bricks just because we can. So if we go in here, I'm just going to select the dark oak. And then we're going to replace stairs. Let's first try the copper. So that gives it a very shiny look. So maybe I'll invert them, have the copper here, and have the mud on the outside. So let's try that out. Alright, so I've kind of gone half and half to kind of see the difference. Just so I can kind of, because you want to see the inversions of each, because one might look better than the other. So if I'm comparing to the other styles, I've kind of been using copper as the accent middle block. So actually, let's see how it looks from further away. So you don't want it to be like too shiny, but I do like the copper kind of color. If I look at the other coppers, maybe if I use the exposed instead, let's try that out actually. Okay, so I made a nice little copy and then just replaced all the regular copper with the exposed. If I look at the other coppers, we have weathered, which is starting to get to that blue, kind of greenish more, and then the oxidized, which is kind of like that tealish color. So I don't think those will work, but this really kind of smooths in a lot nicer with the wax color. Gives it a lot more of a mute color instead of this very bright, vibrant orange. So I think I'm actually going to go with this one. Now I just got to decide, do I want the mud on the accent, the kind of corners, or do I want the copper on the corners? So it just depends on which one I want for like the main roof and which part for the kind of edges. Alright, so I brought my builds up a little out of the way so I can get to building, but I think I've decided on this one. I don't like how kind of vibrant the copper looks on this one. I feel like this really just matches the color of like a muted tone of just like a kind of dark back alley shopping district. So I think I'm going to go for more of this one for the roofs. So let's get to building some more shops. So I've made quite a bit of decent progress, as you just saw from that little time lapse there. I'm coming to the kind of end of this episode because for this one's going to need a lot more work because of how odd the shape I made it. I might fix it, might bring out the back here, make it more squared off in the back, or maybe I'll give a shot at this weird angle. These kind of square ones are easier to do. It's just getting like the in-betweens, seeing how close it's getting. But I wanted to kind of show a technique, what I just do for like mass producing of builds, because I've kind of, as you kind of get through, you find the kind of style you want for everything, and this is kind of what I've been doing. So what I did is I got my corners like I mentioned earlier, got the walls, and then I do my kind of shelves. Then I bring out the stairs by one. On the corners I have full blocks. On the inside I have 2 walls, 2 blocks. So what I do is I just come by here and smear, and then I can just drag. We can fix that in a second. Do the same here, just all the way across. For this one, it's better to just do the top one. No, just didn't. You might want to do it on the end, and then that'll fix the entire row. So if we come over here, and then we go around, I set up my kind of template again, and one more time. And then fix up this. I'll fix up against the mountain afterwards. I might bring it forward so it's a little flatter. But this is like a mass produced. This is my second floor done in 10-15 seconds. I've got to do the roof still. That's the more difficult part, especially on these ones that are connected. I've been kind of doing like individuals. Still have to fix up these kind of little roof bits here, like this. Maybe add a bit more of these front things. The problem with being so close, I can't have too many of these right side by side. So I might fit one in over here. I've got this nice little bridge here connecting these two. Just a little difference. I could add maybe another bridge, maybe like in here or around the other kind of in-betweens. I might shift these builds over by one just because of how close it is here. If I end up doing a roof on this, looks like that didn't connect properly. If I ended up doing a roof on this building, it's going to be touching this one just because it's only one block apart. So either I cut back and like shift back this corner here just so it's in line with this so that I still have some leeway, because while I do kind of enjoy the feel that this gives me when I'm like, maybe let's try it out at night time. Let's go nighttime. It's a little darker now. Let's grab a torch for a little bit of ambiance. And we're just kind of walking through, and it's got these kind of very narrow streets. You don't see much, kind of lose the illusion here, but if we keep going down here, this is the kind of feel I wanted for this video. For these kind of area, I want it to be a very kind of close, tight-knit kind of shopping area. Alright, and that is where I'm going to end today's episode. We got about 8 houses completely done, roof and all. Just the exteriors though, we got plenty of time for interiors, maybe in the next episode. And I think I'll add some lore to these kind of shops. At least one of them is going to be very important for the story-wise, and that one's down here in this alleyway. So we'll get to see a lot more detail going into interiors, maybe a little bit more detail to the exteriors, adding some like things onto the street, maybe a couple like stalls hanging over for temporary stuff, or maybe some bigger windows on the front to show off their merchandise. I can also kind of work on doing the other builds, maybe fix up this weird kind of angled build I've got here, or maybe just make my way and figure it out how I'm going to build it. The other ones are just very easy copy paste, cookie cutter, very similar roof style. You can see from up there my test builds up there, but I think that'll do it for today's episode. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a like and subscribe for more episodes coming soon. Until next time.